Hello again. I'm Wayne Benson. Welcome back to Wayne's World of Mandolin. This is actually the second one of these that I've done. I think it's May 14th, 2020. I have COVID-19 hair, I know that much. But just getting started with all this and hope you guys enjoy it. I'm going to launch right into this. The different scale shapes that we learn to play. That can be a really big deal. It can feel somewhat overwhelming learning these different positions. And some of them seem to be more user-friendly and more capable of stacking layers of information on. But I want to demonstrate to begin with each one of your fingers covering the root note, that's how I like to put it, of the scale. I'm going to do this with A major, which have an A note right here in the middle of the fretboard. I have a video about note identification that could help with this. It's kind of a Kickstarter to get you going, knowing your way around the fretboard more in terms of where the notes are. But this scale, we hear that sound of the A major scale in first position. Okay, now any one of my fingers playing the A note with any one of those fingers, there's the index finger covering the root note. Now the middle finger, now the ring finger, and then your pinky. The same exact scale, but you hear no difference in the notes whatsoever, covering it with a different finger to actually be over the root note. The one of these that I think is arguably the most important shape that we ever learn on the mandolin is the index finger covering the root note. And I want to demonstrate to you why I think that's true. I'm going to make this demonstration in the key of C. There's my index finger on the 3rd fret of the A string. And there's that shape. You may have done exercises in that shape. And you feel like, okay, but it doesn't sound good. You could play. It's very sterile, so you would embellish. And that's still playing out of that shape. But when it comes to just looking at that position on the fretboard and seeing those 8 notes and how symmetrical they are, it's like 2 rows of information stacked on top of each other. Watch this. If I play each of those notes with my middle finger now, so memorizing that shape doesn't mean that I have to execute it with those 4 fingers. With my middle finger covering each one of the root notes, now I'm going to stack another piece of knowledge onto this, which would be the next layer of this is double stops. I would start with this shape that you guys probably already are familiar with for C. Now watch my middle finger, it's going to play the exact same intervals. And with my index finger, I'm going to play the 3rd of each one of the chords. It sounds way bigger than the sum of its parts. A lot of the lines that you might hear in tremolo, single note tremolo line. Now I'm going to play double stops in the place of each one of those notes. we've actually used that shape maybe in a way that you'd never thought about it before. It doesn't have to be, even if you're adding embellishments to the scale and playing out of it in a very musical way, it's also a foundational thing to learn. Now we've turned those single notes into double stops, which means that we're only one note away from actually playing a chord, which is going to lead us to the chord scale. This will actually be the fifth of the chord, but it's going to be the lowest note that we're playing. Let's start with this C. You're probably familiar with that chord, but now we're going to watch that grow into a chord scale. Look at that. Those double stops are still going by. I like to think of it that way. That would be a D minor, then E minor, now F major, G major, A minor, B half diminished. See, two of the double stops now that we played earlier, both of those are wrapped up in this chord, and you can feel that pull back to the root of C. Let me play through that now without talking over it. This is going to go a long way to helping you understand the modes that you can use the scales with. If you're playing a C major scale, it isn't just going to serve you in the key of C. If I was playing a really bluesy solo in D, that whole lick, it's like I'm really just making that second interval the tonal center of what I'm playing. Technically it's D minor. The chord could just be D, and you're playing a bluesy approach to the solo, which is so common for bluegrass music in particular, but if you're playing a jazz tune, you're improvising over something that a modal approach is really going to be a big deal. Maybe that isn't something that's that far removed from what you're already beginning to do just by knowing this shape. So we want to add those layers onto the shape. That's why I say that this is arguably the most important shape that we ever learn on the fretboard. Other things we can do if you have trouble playing some of these chords, if you haven't ever used these particular inversions of chords, most of what you've done has been in the bluegrass world, you're playing the chop chord position, you're going to have to get used to these inversions of the chords. One great way to do that, you can get with rehearsal. I like to think that I'm getting two birds with one stone. I want to work on a right hand technique. We already used some tremolo as part of this study of the fretboard. Now, if you come up with some kind of a roll, maybe a Jesse McReynolds influenced thing that you're playing, or even guitar players that you may have heard, James Taylor and some of the roll things that he does. But to make sure these notes are clean when you play the chords, come up with some things like that that actually make rehearsing this something that's fun and something that sounds musical rather than just strumming the chords. So this is C. Obviously, we've got chord scales like this to learn all over the fretboard, and they aren't always going to just lay there so cut and dried. There are going to be times that we need to take advantage of open strings as part of the concept, but still, we're going to have this foundation of this shape. Even if there were open notes, if we started on an open note, it did this in A, we could still calculate all of it the same way. So don't think of this as something that you just watch this video and then you, okay, I got that and I'm moving on. This is something that you're going to work on for a long time, especially depending on the key signatures that you play in most often. So I hope this helps. And if it does, I would appreciate a like on the video. You could subscribe to the channel. And as always, if you're looking for some one-on-one, I could help you figure out the fundamentals that are really going to support you and the particular music that you're into. I'd love to do that. We could hook up on some Skype lessons. You could reach out to me at Facebook, and we'll make it happen. Just private message me there. Okay.